I gave up my dream job for my husband, but when I got pregnant he said it was a career killer and wanted me to get an abortion. I'm sitting here in my empty apartment, surrounded by packing boxes and wondering how my life turned upside down so quickly. 6 months ago, I had it all: a husband I adored, a nice home in a neighborhood we loved, and what I thought was a solid 5-year plan for our future together. Now I'm pregnant, divorced, and rebuilding my entire life from scratch. Let me back up. Michael and I met in graduate school 7 years ago. We were both ambitious, career-focused people with big dreams. I was pursuing my MBA with hopes of working in international marketing, and he was getting his master's in software engineering. We bonded over late-night study sessions and dreams of traveling the world while building successful careers. After graduation, we both landed great jobs at competitive companies. I was recruited by a global marketing agency that would allow me to work with international clients and travel extensively, exactly what I'd always wanted. Michael joined a tech startup with tremendous growth potential. We dated for 3 years while focusing on our careers, and things were perfect. We supported each other's ambitions, celebrated each other's wins, and comforted each other through the inevitable setbacks. When he proposed, we talked extensively about what our future would look like. We'd both continue growing in our careers, we'd wait at least 5 years before considering children, and we'd make decisions together as equal partners. 2 years into our marriage, Michael's startup was acquired by a tech giant, and he was offered a promotion with a substantial pay increase, but we'd need to relocate to Seattle. This was our first major test as a married couple. My job couldn't transfer me, so I'd have to find something new. It would mean giving up the international travel I loved and the team I'd built strong relationships with. After many long conversations, I agreed to move. Michael's opportunity was too good to pass up, and he promised we'd prioritize my career next. He assured me I'd find something great in Seattle, and while it might be a step back initially, I could rebuild. I believed him. After all, we were partners, and sometimes being a good partner means making sacrifices. Moving to Seattle was harder than I expected. The job market was competitive, and without my network, finding something comparable to what I'd had was challenging. After 3 months of searching, I finally landed a position at a smaller local agency. The salary was 30% less than what I'd been making, the work was less challenging, and there was no international component, but it was something. Michael was sympathetic but also busy with his demanding new role. "Just give it time," he'd say. "You'll work your way up again. I believe in you." For the next 2 years, I tried to make the best of my situation. I worked hard, built new relationships, and slowly climbed the ladder at the agency. It wasn't what I dreamed of, but I was making it work. Michael's career, meanwhile, was skyrocketing. He was traveling to conferences, getting promotions, and making more money than we'd ever imagined. When the topic of children came up again, it was Michael who brought it up, much to my surprise. "I'm ready to start a family," he said one night over dinner. "I think we're in a good place now." I hesitated. According to our original plan, we still had a year before we'd start trying. More importantly, I had just been offered a promotion that would involve managing larger clients and potentially some regional travel. It wasn't the global role I'd once had, but it was a step toward rebuilding my career. "I thought we were waiting another year?" I said. "I just got this promotion." Michael took my hand across the table. "I know, and I'm proud of you. But we're not getting any younger. I'm 33, you're 32. If we want multiple kids, we should start now. Plus, my job is stable, I'm making more than enough for both of us. You could take time off with the baby and then go back to work if you want." The way he said "if you want" gave me pause, but I brushed it off. We'd always been on the same page about me continuing my career after children. And he had supported my career by moving, so couldn't I support his desire to start our family a bit earlier than planned? After a few more discussions, I agreed. We'd start trying for a baby. To both our surprise, I got pregnant almost immediately. Michael was ecstatic, picking me up and spinning me around when the test showed positive. I was happy too, though a bit anxious about how quickly it had happened. I'd expected to have more time to settle into my new role before pregnancy. The first few weeks were a blur of doctor's appointments, morning sickness, and sharing the news with family. Michael was attentive and excited, coming to every appointment and downloading pregnancy apps. Then, about 10 weeks in, things changed. I was at work when my boss called me into his office. He was smiling broadly. "Great news," he said. "The Thompson account was so impressed with your presentation last week that they want you to lead their full rebrand. This would be our biggest project this year." My heart leapt. This was exactly the opportunity I needed to really establish myself at the company. The project would be challenging, high profile, and could open doors for even bigger opportunities. That's amazing, I said. When would it start? Immediately. It's a 6-month project, full intensity. You'll need to be all in. He paused, his expression changing slightly. I know about your situation. Are you sure you can commit to this right now? I didn't miss his meaning. News of my pregnancy had spread through the office. Absolutely, I said firmly. I'm not due for 7 months, and my doctor says I'm healthy. I can lead this project. I left his office elated and immediately called Michael to share the good news. I expected him to be thrilled for me. Instead, there was a long pause. A 6-month intensive project? While you're pregnant? He finally said. Is that really a good idea? Why wouldn't it be? I asked, my excitement deflating. The timing works perfectly. I can complete the project before the baby comes. You should be focused on taking care of yourself and the baby right now, not taking on the biggest project of your career, he said. Can't someone else lead it? I was stunned. Michael, this is a huge opportunity for me. You know how hard I've worked to rebuild my career since we moved here. My doctor says I'm healthy, there's no reason I can't do this. The conversation ended tensely, with neither of us satisfied. That night, when Michael came home, he tried again. I've been thinking about your project, he said as we were preparing dinner. I'm concerned about the stress. Stress isn't good for the baby. I've researched this, I countered. Normal work stress isn't harmful during pregnancy. Women work through pregnancy all the time. But this wouldn't be normal work stress. You said yourself it's an intensive, high-pressure project. I can handle it, I insisted. I want this opportunity, Michael. I need it. He sighed, putting down the knife he was using to chop vegetables. I'm just worried that you're prioritizing your career over our baby's health. His words hit me like a slap. That's not fair. I'm not choosing between my career and our baby. I can do both. Can you, though? Maybe in theory, but in reality, something has to give. The argument escalated from there, with Michael suggesting I was being selfish and me feeling blindsided by a sudden change in attitude. We'd always agreed I would continue working after having children. Why was he now acting like my career was in opposition to being a good mother? Over the next few days, the tension between us continued to grow. Michael began sending me articles about the dangers of stress during pregnancy and stories of women who regretted not taking it easier while pregnant. I countered with research showing that most women work throughout their pregnancies without issues, and that what's most stressful is being unsupported. Then one evening, about 2 weeks after I'd been offered the Thompson project, Michael came home late. I could tell he'd had a few drinks, not drunk, but definitely loosened up. We need to talk, he said, sitting heavily on the couch. About what? I asked, though I already knew. About your job. About the baby. He ran a hand through his hair. I've been thinking a lot, and I need to be honest with you. I don't think you should be working right now at all. I stared at him. Excuse me? My mom stayed home with me, and I turned out fine. Better than fine. Kids need their mothers. Especially in the early years. Michael, we've discussed this. We always agreed I'd keep working after having kids. We were going to look into good daycares, maybe a nanny. That was our plan. Plans change, he said dismissively. Now that we're actually having a baby, I've realized what's important. My job can support us. You don't need to work. This isn't about needing to work from a financial perspective, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I want to work. My career is important to me. You know this. He shook his head, a pitying look on his face that made my blood boil. A career is just a job. Family is what matters. Once you hold our baby, you'll understand. Your maternal instincts will kick in. My maternal instincts don't mean I have to give up my professional identity, I argued. Plenty of women are both mothers and professionals. Sure, and their kids suffer for it, he muttered. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like a stranger had replaced my husband, this man who had always respected my ambitions and considered us equals. Where is this coming from? I demanded. You've never talked like this before. We had a plan, Michael. A plan we made together. He avoided my eyes. I've been talking to some of the guys at work, and... The guys at work? You're letting them influence how we plan our family? No, it's not like that. They just helped me see things clearly. Jake's wife stayed home with their kids, and those kids are thriving. Meanwhile, Eric's wife insisted on going back to work, and now their oldest is having behavior problems at school. It's not a coincidence. I was speechless. The comparison was so simplistic, ignoring thousands of variables that could affect a child's development. It couldn't possibly be the foundation of a major life decision. "This is ridiculous," I said finally. "We can't base our decisions on your coworkers' anecdotal experiences. We need to do what works for our family, and we've always said that includes both of us having fulfilling careers." That was before I understood what it means to be a father, to be responsible for a child's well-being, he insisted. "Having a baby changes everything." "You haven't even had the baby yet," I exclaimed, exasperated. "How can you already know what kind of father you want to be?" "Because I'm taking it seriously," he shot back. "I'm thinking about what's best for our child, not just what I want." The implication that I wasn't considering our baby's well-being stung deeply. I placed a protective hand over my still flat stomach. "I'm done with this conversation," I said. "I'm taking the Thompson project. I'm continuing my career. If you've suddenly decided you want a housewife instead of the woman you married, that's your problem to solve, not mine." I walked out of the room, shaking with anger and hurt. That night, for the first time in our marriage, we slept with our backs to each other, a cold gulf of silence between us. The next few weeks were tense. Michael would leave for work early and come home late, avoiding prolonged conversations. When we did talk, it was superficial, discussions about groceries or bills, nothing substantial. I threw myself into the Thompson project, determined to prove I could excel despite the stress at home. Then, at 14 weeks pregnant, I went in for a routine checkup. I was excited because this was the appointment where we might be able to hear the baby's heartbeat. I'd asked Michael to come, and despite our ongoing tension, he'd agreed. As we sat in the waiting room, not really talking, I noticed Michael seemed agitated. He kept checking his phone, sighing, and shifting in his seat. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," he said curtly. "Just a situation at work." When we were called in, the nurse took my vitals and then left us waiting for the doctor. As soon as the door closed behind her, Michael turned to me. "We need to talk about this." "About what?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling. "About whether we're really ready for this baby." I stared at him, uncomprehending at first. Then his meaning hit me like a truck. Are you suggesting what I think you are?" He couldn't quite meet my eyes. "I'm just saying, we're clearly not on the same page about how to raise a child. Maybe the timing is wrong. Maybe we should wait until we're more aligned." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "You want me to get an abortion? After we plan this pregnancy? After you were the one who pushed to start trying early?" "I didn't realize then how much you'd prioritize your career over our family," he said defensively. "I thought once you were pregnant, your perspective would shift." "So because I won't quit my job to stay home, you think we should terminate this pregnancy? A pregnancy you pushed for?" He had the decency to look ashamed, but he didn't back down. "Children need stability, they need parents who agree on the big things. Right now, that's not us." Before I could respond, the doctor knocked and entered the room. She must have sensed the tension, but professionally, she carried on with the examination. "Let's see if we can hear that heartbeat today," she said cheerfully, squirting the cold gel on my abdomen. As she moved the Doppler around, the room filled with a rapid, rhythmic swooshing sound. My baby's heartbeat. Strong, fast, alive. I looked at Michael. His face had paled, and he was staring at the Doppler with an unreadable expression. "That's a good, strong heartbeat," the doctor said. "Everything looks perfect." When the appointment was over and we were walking to our cars in silence, I finally spoke. "I'm keeping this baby, Michael. With or without you." He stopped walking. "What does that mean?" "It means I've compromised enough. I gave up my dream job to move for your career. I agreed to start trying for a baby earlier than we planned because you were ready. I've bent over backwards to be a good partner to you. But I will not give up my career, and I will not terminate this pregnancy. Those are my lines in the sand." "So you're choosing the baby over our marriage?" he asked incredulously. "No, you're the one making that choice. You're the one who suddenly changed all the rules. You're the one who decided my career is incompatible with being a mother, despite everything we've ever discussed." He ran a hand over his face. "I need some time to think." "Take all the time you need," I said. "I'll be at my sister's." That night, I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister, Emma, who lived about 20 minutes away. She was furious when I told her what was happening. "He wants you to what?" she nearly shouted. "After you moved for his job? After he pushed to start trying for a baby earlier? Is he out of his mind?" I broke down then, sobbing in a way I hadn't allowed myself to do before. All the stress, The hurt, the betrayal came pouring out. I don't understand, I cried. How could he change so completely? We had a plan. We were partners. Now suddenly I'm supposed to give up everything I've worked for because he's decided that's what makes a good mother? Emma held me as I cried, then made me tea and helped me settle into her guest room. You're staying here as long as you need, she said firmly. And for what it's worth, I think you're making the right decision. If he can't support you in this, then he's not the partner you thought he was. Over the next few days, Michael texted a few times, asking when I was coming home, saying we needed to talk. I responded that I wasn't ready, that I needed space to think. In reality, I was terrified of what another conversation would bring. Part of me still hoped that he'd come to his senses, that he'd realize how unreasonable he was being. But another part knew that something fundamental had broken between us. After a week at Emma's, I agreed to meet Michael at a cafe, Neutral Ground. When I arrived, he was already there, looking tired and drawn. My heart ached despite everything. I still loved him. I just didn't recognize him anymore. Thanks for meeting me, he said as I sat down. I nodded but didn't speak. He took a deep breath. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I stand by what I said about what's best for children. Kids need their mother at home, especially in the early years. That's just what I believe. My heart sank. I've been hoping for an apology, a realization. But, he continued, I understand that you feel differently. And I shouldn't have brought up the other option. That was wrong of me. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was something. So where does that leave us? I asked. He looked down at his coffee. I don't know. I still want this to work, but I don't see how it can if we're so fundamentally opposed on something this important. It didn't seem like we were fundamentally opposed when we discussed having children before, I pointed out. You agreed that I would continue working. You were supportive of my career. What changed? He shrugged, a gesture that infuriated me with its casualness. Reality set in. The theoretical became actual. I started really thinking about what kind of home I want for my child. Our child, I corrected. And what about what I want? What about our partnership? Of course I care what you want, he said, but his tone was condescending. I just think you're not seeing the bigger picture. The conversation went in circles after that. Michael wasn't budging from his position that a good mother stays home with her children, and I wasn't budging from mine that I could be both a dedicated professional and a loving mother. We left the cafe no closer to a resolution. That night, back at Emma's, I made a decision. I couldn't continue in limbo, hoping Michael would change back into the man I thought I'd married. I needed to move forward with my life, with my pregnancy, with my career. If he couldn't be part of that on the terms we'd always agreed to, then I had to accept that our marriage was over. The next day, I consulted with a divorce attorney. It felt surreal. I was 16 weeks pregnant and initiating a divorce. This was never how I imagined my life would go. The attorney was kind but practical, explaining what the process would look like, how we'd divide assets, how custody would work once the baby was born. When I told Michael the first wanted a divorce, he seemed shocked, as if he'd expected me to eventually give in to his demands. You're really willing to break up our family before it even starts? He asked, his voice breaking. You broke it, I said quietly. When you decided that your new views were more important than our partnership, than the plans we made together, than my identity as a person separate from being a mother. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly civil, if emotionally devastating. We sold our house and divided the proceeds. We split our other assets equitably. We agreed to wait until after the baby was born to finalize custody arrangements. Michael didn't fight me on any of it, which in some ways made it harder. It was as if he'd accepted that we were over with a resignation that hurt more than anger would have. Meanwhile, I threw myself into the Thompson project at work, finding solace in the challenges it presented. My boss and team were supportive, making accommodations for my doctor's appointments and increasingly frequent bathroom breaks as my pregnancy progressed. The project was going well, validating my conviction that I could excel professionally while pregnant. My sister was my rock through it all. She came to doctor's appointments, helped me find a new apartment, and never once questioned my decisions. She even helped me set up a nursery in my new place, painting the walls a soft green. We decided not to find out the sex of the baby, and assembling furniture when my growing belly made it difficult for me. At 7 months pregnant, I successfully completed the Thompson project, receiving accolades from both the client and my boss. It was a bittersweet victory, professionally fulfilling but highlighting what Michael had missed by his inability to support me. Then, at 8 months pregnant, I received a text from Michael asking if we could talk. We hadn't had a real conversation in weeks, communicating only through our attorneys about the divorce. Curious and a bit apprehensive, I agreed to meet him at the same cafe where we'd had our last meaningful conversation. He was already there when I arrived, just like last time. But unlike last time, he stood when he saw me, his eyes widening at the sight of my very pregnant belly. It had been almost 2 months since he'd seen me. "You look beautiful," he said softly as I lowered myself carefully into the chair. "Thank you," I replied, unsure how to respond to this unexpected compliment. "What did you want to talk about?" He took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. A lot of soul-searching, actually. And I've realized I was wrong." I stared at him, not quite believing what I was hearing. I let myself be influenced by people at work, by outdated ideas about parenting and gender roles. I convinced myself I was taking a stand on principles, but really, I was just scared. Scared of what? I asked. Of everything changing. Of not being enough as a father. Of messing up. So I tried to control everything, to make our family fit this perfect image I had in my head. He looked directly at me. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I was wrong to try to make you give up your career. I was wrong too. To suggest terminating the pregnancy. I was just wrong." I sat silently, letting his words sink in. Part of me wanted to leap at this apology, to forgive him and go back to the partnership I thought we had. But another part, a stronger part, remembered the hurt, the betrayal, the fundamental disconnect his actions had revealed. "I appreciate your apology," I said finally. "But I don't think it changes anything." His face fell. "What do you mean?" "Michael, you showed me who you really are when things got tough. You showed me that when push comes to shove, your views on my role as a woman, as a mother, are fundamentally different from what I believed. I can't unhear the things you said. I can't unfeel the way you made me doubt myself, the way you tried to make me choose between being a mother and being myself." "People make mistakes," he said desperately. "I made a terrible mistake. But I've learned from it. I promise I'll never try to control you like that again." I shook my head sadly. "The problem is, I don't trust that. What happens the next time you get scared? The next time your coworkers influence you? Will you suddenly decide our child needs to go to a certain school, or participate in certain activities, or live a certain way, regardless of what I think or what might be best for them?" "That won't happen," he insisted. "I've really changed." "In 2 months?" I asked skeptically. "Changed fundamental beliefs about gender roles and parenting that were strong enough to make you suggest I terminate a wanted pregnancy? I don't think so." We talked for another hour, Michael pleading his case, me holding firm. In the end, I told him that while I would ensure he had a relationship with our child, our romantic relationship was over. The trust was broken, and I couldn't see a way to rebuild it. A month later, I gave birth to our daughter, Lily. Michael was there, as we'd agreed he could be, but as a co-parent, not a husband. Holding her for the first time, I felt a fierce love and also a fierce determination to show her what a strong, complete woman looks like, not someone who shrinks herself to fit a man's expectations, but someone who embraces all parts of her identity, including but not limited to being a mother. Now, 6 months after Lily's birth, I'm back at work part-time, gradually ramping up to full-time. We found an excellent daycare where Lily is thriving. Michael sees her 3 days a week and every other weekend. He's been a better father than I expected, genuinely engaged and loving, though we still have occasional disagreements about parenting approaches. As for me, I'm rebuilding. My career is back on track after the success of the Thompson Project. I have a supportive network of friends and family. And most importantly, I have the knowledge that when faced with one of the hardest decisions of my life, I chose to honor myself, my values, and ultimately, what I believe will be best for my daughter, having a mother who models integrity, self-respect, and the courage to stand up for herself, even when it's hard. The empty apartment I'm sitting in now won't be empty for long. Next week, Lily and I are moving to Chicago, where I've accepted a position with an international marketing firm, the kind of role I've been working toward since graduate school. Michael wasn't happy about the move, but our custody agreement allows for it, and we've worked out a visitation schedule that will give him regular time with Lily. It's not the life I planned, not the family I imagined, but it's a life of my own making, aligned with my values and goals. And when Lily is old enough to understand, I'll tell her that the greatest act of love I ever showed her was believing that I could be both the mother and the professional I wanted to be, without sacrificing either part of myself. Because that's the example I want to set for my daughter, that she never has to make herself smaller to fit someone else's idea of who she should be.